This is the Biz News Podcast, one-on-one conversations with experts in business and personal development.
Who might make the better leader? One who's emotional or one who suppresses emotions? It's likely that Kim Korte, a Napa, California-based consultant and author, would say the former. She's developed a leadership strategy that centers around interoception, the body's sensory system that creates the sensations we call emotions. Ms. Korte says studies have shown a causal relationship between interoception and the rationality of decision making. She joins us for this Biz News Interviews episode.
Think of interoception as the sensory system that helps you catch your feelings. So interoception is how we feel inside our body. It's a sensory system, just like sight and hearing and smelling and all the other sensory systems that we have. But those are called exteroception, meaning outside of the body. Interoception is how we get information about what's going on inside of us. And so with that, this is how we feel hungry. This is how we feel tired. So we think of emotions as just being, limited to things like love and hate and anger and happiness. But we also have these, what's called, I'm the one who's forgetting, homeostatic emotions, or the emotions that keep us alive and draw us to take action to keep our body healthy. But that's really what emotions of all sorts do. But that's interoception. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And a lot of people say, well, we never even think about these things. Is this like you get a hunch and you're supposed to follow it, or what?
Exactly. That's a signal coming from, like you say, oh, I've got a gut feeling. You feel your anxiety going up. That's the noticing of your heart racing. You might feel an increase in heat of your body, and those are the body telling you that you feel a particular emotion, be it anxiety or hunger. And we can get those confused too. So we were talking about, stomach issues or feelings in your stomach. It could be hunger and it might be something else. So the more you are aware of your sensory system, the signals sent, the better you are at identifying your feelings.
But don't we just kind of ignore this unless it's something really huge? You're talking about trying to sense little things, aren't you?
We do it really all the time. We just aren't always conscious of it. And so the body's only talking to us when we need to pay attention, or when the brain thinks we need to pay attention. And so this is where our efforts to correct the brain. So this is the thing with the brain. Whether you are hearing or smelling or seeing or tasting, it can get the information wrong. And we experience this a lot too. It's called prediction error. So everything we experience, all of the things we see is a prediction of the brain. And the brain can correct itself if we are consciously able to do that. So let's say we're out in a crowd and we see, what we think is our friend Bob, and we see Bob with another woman, and we think, oh, Bob's seen someone, but it wasn't Bob. It was someone who kind of looked like Bob, but we didn't really focus in to see if it was Bob. So we could make a prediction error, and now Bob's in trouble for no good reason.
Poor Bob. We
Poor
felt sorry
Bob.
for him. We talk about
But
him around the water cooler a lot, though.
exactly. But you see what I'm saying is that we're always predicting everything that we experience. And that is true too of our emotions. And when I'm talking about the feelings that we have, like pain, emotions, the affective kind, the ones like love and all that. And it's because the brain is going based on past experience. Like we don't know who Bob is until we've met Bob and examined his face and know how to recognize Bob. So it's the same thing with emotions.
Why is it important for business people and other leaders to develop this?
Because emotions are so tied to decision making. And I know so many people would love to say, I use nothing but logic. I nothing but logic. And the fact is that your emotions play a keen part in this. And to say that you make an emotionless decision is impossible. And there's a famous neuroscientist and researcher, Antonio Damasio, and he was studying people who had damage to a particular part of the brain in the prefrontal cortex that uh, impacts emotion. And he noticed that without being able to connect to emotions, like people with this damage couldn't connect to seeing sad photos or seeing gruesome pictures. They couldn't feel anything. So in working with him, he had this one experience of people like this. He had this one experience where this man could not decide when he was going to make his next appointment. He was thinking through all of these things, what would the weather be, la 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 la, all these, and he couldn't. So finally he said, I'm picking this date. And he said, okay. Now this was due to damage, but in the brain, but we see this also like with people who have dementia, Alzheimer's. My mother-in-law had Alzheimer's and she couldn't remember if she liked a food or not. So she couldn't decide whether she wanted to eat something because she didn't know if she liked it or not. And this is damage to the brain. And so some of us clamp down our emotions and try not to feel them. And so just as much as it impacts someone with dementia, or somebody who has had brain injury, it can also affect our decision making because we are trying to push down key components that are integral to decision making. In fact, Damasio made a comment that the saying, Descartes saying, I think, therefore I am, was wrong. He said, I feel, therefore I am.
You work with people to help them develop this. What got
Yes.
you into this?
My own clamping down or pushing down of emotions, yes. So I had some difficult things happen to me as a young girl, uh, inappropriate behavior. And I had a mother I was raised with who was an alcoholic, love her dearly, but that caused a lot of problems. And there was a lot of blindness, if you could say. There's a term, willful blindness. It's that inability or not wanting to look at a situation because it feels uncomfortable, or cognitive dissonance. It's similar, but the point is that I grew up with this and I tended to push down my emotions. And I had, excuse me, several incidents where my not facing my emotions was a problem. And the topper of it was when my husband left me for another woman who worked for us, and I thought he was the love of my life. This is my ex-husband. My now husband is just the best. But we had two businesses together. I was very connected to his family, and when I lost him, I lost a lot. And I laid on the floor of my condo thinking, how am I going to keep this from happening to me again? How did I get here? And when I got up, that was when I started on this journey. And it wasn't until I read a book called How Emotions Are Made: The Secret Life of the Brain, that I was introduced to interoception. And now interoception is being used in interoceptive awareness with treating alcoholic use disorder, with treating depression, with treating all uh, post-traumatic stress syndrome. There's a lot of effort to help people to connect to their feelings, to help them, you know, get through life and to be comfortable with feeling, because it's so integral to knowing who we are. Like I said, what we want, what we don't want, and really an ability to connect to ourselves, which allows us to connect to others.
When you are approached by somebody who said, Kim, can you help me? How do you start out?
Well, you talk to them and you kind of get an idea of where they're at, because it's a strategy, right? Because what are you comfortable with? What aren't you? How connected are you to your feelings? You see the gamut. And then it's exercises. It Because taste, or I should say, take that back, flavor is a component of multiple sensory systems. What we see can influence how our food tastes. What we hear, the music going on around us, how it smells. We know people can't taste without the sense of smell. So it's a multi-sensory experience, just like emotions are. And learning to understand and differentiate between your emotions and between situations. So if you think of our perceptive ingredients, our perceptions, what's going on around us as ingredients, if we are able to distinguish certain situations from others and label them accordingly, it's like the difference between spaghetti with, tomato sauce versus spaghetti I don't know, carbonara, or all these different, different types of spaghetti. They're all similar and yet distinct. And so helping people to get comfortable with recognizing their sensory system, like tasting different foods, noticing sensations in their body, just taking moments, and then helping them to look at that in a situation. And then in being proactive in saying, okay, what just happened shouldn't have been this, it should have been this. And then you've just created what I call a new recipe in your brain. So using these concepts of food and cooking is what makes it more palatable for you to connect to those emotions, because it's using the same sensory systems as taste.
But Kim, I can hear some of our business people who are in the audience saying, wait a minute, I don't have time for that. What are you talking about? In today's world, we barely have time to blow our nose, it seems.
But do you have time not to? So when you're looking at the weight of poor decision making, or not being connected to your employees, not being able to experience compassion or empathy, and know the difference, or know when to pull it back and say, I shouldn't show empathy here, I should show compassion. Or the ability to be observant, that makes the difference in your decisions that impact your business or your employees. Or go outside of the business world, look at your family, look at your friendships. So it's not like it takes a long time. It's just taking a moment or two. After a while, it just becomes natural. It's not like you have to think about it. So if you think about a chef who is learning their trade, at first they really have to concentrate. When they take a spoonful of a dish, or a forkful, and they taste it, they really have to concentrate. But a trained chef, they don't have to. They go, oh, too much of this, not enough of this. Oh, it's perfect. And that's what happens when you get in that habit. You don't even have to think about it. You're just going, oh, wait, what was going on there?
Kim, do you have a website where people can get more information about what you're doing?
I do. It's kimkorte.com. KIMKORTE.com. And if you go to the landing page, you can get a free little sample of the book. It's the introduction, uh, and the first chapter, and then a little bio on me.
And you do have to tell us more about the book, too.
Yeah, it's called Yucky, Yummy, Savory, Sweet, Understanding the Flavors of Emotions. Because we feel yucky and we taste yucky. So when we can do the same with our, it's really what it's trying to do, is make that relationship to food and to feelings, just because it's an easy transition, and it makes it easier to consume, more palatable. You like all those food puns?
Yes. And before you get the award for the most unusual book title of 2024, I need to
Thank
ask
you.
you, what would you like to add we haven't talked about?
Just that Feelings are scary for people. And I want people to understand that just like you can predict that Bob is wrong, you can predict your feelings wrong. And so knowing that your feelings can be wrong should give you that curiosity factor, or I shouldn't say should, can hopefully give you that curiosity factor, especially in really critical situations that are important to say, hey, where could I be wrong? And it's hard ego-wise sometimes to do that, but when we can engage that curiosity and understand the frailty of brain prediction, then we can be more proactive to give the brain something better to choose from in the future.
You've been listening to the Biz News Podcast. We welcome your input. Send your email to editor@biznews.com. That's bizgnus.com. Thanks for listening.